Panasonic just released an update to their G9II camera, which has me thinking, is the GH line dead? Hello everyone, my name's Josh from Videos by Josh, and when I was starting out as a video shooter in 2017, there was nothing I wanted more than to shoot a short film. Short films in my area, rather budget constraint, often used DSLR or prosumer cameras to get the job done. And if you can remember back to that time, very popular cameras for shooting short films included the Canon 5D Mark III, the Sony a7S II, and then the a7 III was coming out shortly. And then the legend on the side of the Panasonic cameras, the GH4 and the GH5, were incredibly popular short film cameras. And that's because Panasonic has long known in the market where they belong in the Micro Four Thirds system as an incredibly versatile filmmaker's camera that undercuts the price of some of the larger sensor offerings. Seriously, like if you were in the filmmaking scene in 2016, 17, 18, even before that with the GH4, you know how popular these cameras were. Like with a Micro Four Thirds sensor, you get adapted glass, you could shoot EF mount, super convenient, PL conversions. Like it was really the camera to use for the short film, the GH5. So the GH5 was incredibly popular, which is why when Panasonic released the GH6, it also garnered a fair bit of fanfare. Not as much as the previous GH5, but the GH6 was seen as a good improvement from the GH5, and it had a lot of the video capabilities us short filmmakers and video shooters were looking for. Now, the Panasonic G9 camera has also been around for a number of years, and when it started out in its Mark I, it was a photography-focused camera. But it soon started to get some eye from the video shooters as it had some of the similar features of the GH line. So there were video shooters who were shooting on the G9. And then in September of 2023, this year, Panasonic released the G9II. And if you kind of squint your eyes and you see the G9II and the GH6 side by side and their features, they were actually really, really similar. And I mean, what does that mean for the GH line, right? A photography camera and a video camera, and they have similar features. How do you know which one to choose? Both cameras had the same sensor, the same live view screens, the same ISO limits, very similar stabilization, and similar assist tools as well. It was clear that the G9II was a formidable camera for both Micro Four Thirds photography and for video. But one of the things that kept Panasonic shooters coming back to the GH line of cameras and the GH6 was its recording codecs. The GH6 allows you to record ProRes internally, which is a huge win for some. And more importantly, the GH6 allows you to output ProRes RAW into a recorder, which is an incredibly versatile codec that allows you to adjust multiple parameters of settings in the editor so you don't have to get them 100% right on the day of the shoot. And that's really important for video shooters and almost irrelevant for photography shooters. So imagine my surprise when just a couple days ago, Panasonic announces that they're bringing external ProRes RAW recording to the GH, I almost said GH, to the G9 Mark II. That's right, Panasonic has announced it will add raw video output to the Panasonic G9 Mark II in a forthcoming firmware update. This is going to bring the Panasonic G9 Mark II's video specs incredibly close to the GH6. To clarify, Panasonic has promised support will be provided so that RAW stream could be encoded into B-RAW monitors by Blackmagic, so those are the 12 GHDR external recorders, or in ProRes RAW by various Atmos recorders like the Ninja and the Shogun, which is pretty much industry standard recording for those formats. These recorders will be able to capture 5.7K in DCI 4K or in the camera's two 4x3 modes, and it's got a designated mode for anamorphic shooting. Now, this firmware V2 has not been announced to hit a specific date, but it's Panasonic, and they're relatively good at meeting their deadlines at a reasonable time frame, so I'm confident we will see it in the near future. But that has me wondering what the future of the GH line of cameras is. The GH lines are the GOAT. These cameras are incredibly compact filmmaking cameras, but it seems like that the G9 Mark II is equally so. In fact, if you're looking to choose between the two cameras, it's gotten even more narrow than ever. So let's go over what the GH6 has that the G9 doesn't. So if you're looking for a Micro Four Thirds video camera, the GH will offer you a lower price. Right now, it's $200 American lower than the G9II. The GH6 also has a fan inside, which allows you to record in hotter environments. The GH6 has unlimited recording time, where the G9II is kind of limited by how hot it's getting to record, so it functionally has a record limit. So functionally, you can record indefinitely with the GH6. There's no limit, but there have been reports that the G9II does get kind of hot when recording, and functionally, you will have to stop it at some time to cool down. Fans of the GH line of cameras also praise the GH6's body design over the G9 Mark II, so that could be a consideration consideration. One of the aspects on the body style is the front record button on the GH6, which a lot of video shooters like. As I mentioned before, the GH6 allows you to record ProRes internally, which is a codec that a lot of editors like, especially those working in Premiere Pro. But other than some very minute changes to the menus and assist tools, it appears that that's really as far as the GH6 goes in terms of differences, because the big difference between these two cameras was the external RAW recording. Now the G9 Mark II has it, and it actually has a little more. One big complaint from Panasonic users over the last 5+ years has been Panasonic's autofocus technology. The GH line of cameras has always had depth from defocus or DFD autofocus, which is notoriously average at subject acquisition and tracking. But Panasonic's new G9 Mark II has phase detect autofocus similar to those in the Sony cameras, which has been proven to be a much superior technology for tracking autofocus in video. So that alone might influence your decision choosing between these cameras if you want to stay on the Micro Four Thirds system. And that's not even mentioning that the G9 Mark II is hands down clearly the better camera for still photographers and hybrid shooters, because it has a lot of photo aspects and modes that you're not getting with the GH6. And with its video capabilities so close to the GH6, I think that only hardcore filmmakers and diehards for the GH line will still be pulling themselves towards the GH6. The G9 Mark II has so heavily encroached on the GH line of cameras that I think it's going to become more difficult for Micro Four Thirds shooters to make that distinction. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Having two excellent cameras that happen to be quite similar isn't necessarily a problem. In fact, a lot of manufacturers would probably like to be in that situation. My worry is that it causes a bit of confusion as to Panasonic's product stack. The Micro Four Thirds system has long been dominated by video shooting workhorse cameras, and there have been some good photo cameras as well, but Panasonic has an S-line offering that may appeal more to the photo shooter in their lineup. Panasonic's really in kind of a race of their own, given that they're one of the only holdouts still on the Micro Four Thirds system. To have cameras this good is definitely a plus, but I do see confusion in their lineup that I don't really know what to do with. That being said, they could have went the way of Sony and charged for this update. I'm glad they didn't do that, or at least they haven't said anything about that in the time up to the announcement. So at this point, I'm assuming this update is free. And a free upgrade to include ProRes RAW recording and a camera you may have already purchased is a-okay in my book. So what do you think about Panasonic's upgraded firmware for the G9 Mark II that brings it more in line with the GH6? Personally, I could take it one of two ways. I'm extremely positive that they're adding this great functionality to an already great camera and making it even better. There's also part of me that thinks that this kind of mixing of the product stacks between the photo and the video camera in the GH line is unnecessarily confusing, but it does seem to be at the benefit of the buyer. So maybe I'm missing something here, but in general, I do see it as a net positive. I do think this will drive people into the G9 more than the GH6, perhaps hurting sales of the GH6 down the line, but the GH6 is the older camera, so it was bound to happen that a newer camera would usurp it in some way at some point. GH6 can't live forever, even though it is still a relatively new camera launched in 2022. So at this point, it seems like Panasonic thinks it's fair to split the crowd amongst the two cameras. Personally, I think if you're looking for a capable hybrid camera and a dominant video shooter, both cameras have a lot to offer, and you should weigh the pros and cons of the Micro Four Thirds system against what you're looking to accomplish as a creative. But that's it for me. What do you think of Panasonic's new update to the G9 Mark II and how it brings it closer in line with the GH6? Let me know down below in the comments. Remember, I read every single one of them, so I'll do my best to get back to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.